welcome to episode 16 of the HeartSpace podcast with myself, Jasmine, and my wonderful co-host here, Alicia.
Kia ora, guys. How are we today?
And as you can see, we have a special guest with us today, Spirit Timothy. He resides in Australia and he has come to share his perspective on what's happening in this great awakening worldwide. And what we did want to touch on today is censorship and what's actually going on in his part of the world over in Australia too. So welcome, Tim, and thank you so much for being here today.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's a beautiful day here and wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Oh, awesome. And we're so glad to have you here. And so do you just want to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself and your background and what has been happening with you in terms of your experiences with censorship on the social media platforms?
Yeah, sure. I guess I'll try and make a long story short. My background, I guess I grew up in a Catholic family, and then I learned about positive affirmations and stuff when I was a kid, and that kind of putting a circle of love and light around yourself. So I've kind of been exposed to spirituality since I was a child. And then I went into the 3D world, became a mortgage broker, and I binge drank and partied a lot and had a good career and stuff like that. But then I was deeply unhappy inside, and I started meditating, and slowly I started waking up to the truth of, the spiritual world and who and what we really are, spirit having a human experience. And I started sharing that on Facebook first. And at first it was fine. Like sort of in 2019, I started sharing a bit of stuff. And then I remember a guy at work said to me at the time, he's like, oh, so I see on Facebook you've found God. And I said at the time, I'm like, oh, yeah, you can have a couple of acid trips and everyone's found God kind of thing. Like, because I kind of, my ego didn't want, I was like putting stuff on Facebook, but I still was living this like double life as a mortgage broker. And I'm like, my colleagues are like seeing some of this stuff. And then it all kind of blew up in 2020. And then the censorship started. And I remember blowing up on Facebook about when I first got like a video removed or whatever, because I'd never been censored on the internet before, and that was back in early 2020. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, like this is anti-free speech. Like I've always thought like, the left and stuff like that. I was in, racism protests and stuff when I was 15 years old with my aunties and stuff like that. And I always thought that free speech was like a pinnacle of what everyone believed in, what all of society believed in. And then when the censorship started, a guy who I went to school with, he's like a semi-famous magician, like been in Vegas and stuff like that, and been performed in hotels there and stuff, been on TV and stuff like that. And he's like, oh, well, you signed the terms and conditions. And I'm like, hang on a minute, the terms and conditions. So just because you've decided that you've developed community guidelines and I've broken those community guidelines, but who decides? There's a bunch of psychologists behind a computer screen that I can't even have a debate with. And then on TikTok, so basically, so I woke up, basically, meditation, some psychedelics helped, started posting stuff on Facebook. And then I went mini viral and got like 7,000 people try to add me in a week. But long story short, I've been banned on Facebook for 365 days in less than 2 years.
Wow.
And going back to
that's like
wow, crazy.
Going back to what we're meant to believe in and what they talk about, freedom, democracy. Don't tell me we live in a democracy and we have freedom when I can't even say what I and then on TikTok, so I'll go on TikTok, right? And I share myself pretty raw and authentic, I did videos a day, my dad and my brother died and stuff like that. And I resonate with people for some reason. But I've had over 30 accounts banned on TikTok. Wow. And my last account, I had almost 5,000 followers and I was mid-live. And I said something that they obviously didn't like about David Bowie, got cut out mid-live and the account was just banned like that.
So what kind of, what are they banning you for? What are you actually speaking about in your post? just so the viewers are aware of what kind of information you're getting censored about?
Yeah, so I think we even have to be careful here because this is going on YouTube, right? But let me give you an example of what they use, right? So the main ones that I get done for are on TikTok. They say I have a lack of integrity and authenticity. So what they're saying is the information that I'm saying to you is not true. So if I say to you, for example, all right, I'm going to use a test to test whether you are heterosexual or not. But the test doesn't actually test for that, but I'm going to tell you it does, and I'm going to test everyone, and I'm going to decide whether you're heterosexual or you're gay, right? This test tells you. Well, we all know that that's not true, right? The test can't tell you whether you're gay or not, right?
Yeah.
But they're saying that they can test you for something, tell you you have something, and that you need to get something to protect you. And it's like, but hang on a minute. The inventor of that test told you that does not test for that. So therefore, how can it exist if it doesn't test for that? And then also you go, well, show me where you've isolated it. And there's been Freedom of Information Acts all around the world that have been put forward by people saying, show me a scientific paper in the world where you can show me that you isolate this, which is not on a computer program, and they can't do it. And then when I put that information out there, they tell me that I have a lack of authenticity and integrity. It's like, hang on a minute, I'm asking questions that you can't provide the answers to, and you're telling me I have a lack of integrity and authenticity?
TikTok use that one a lot because it happens with me as well.
Yeah.
It's like their go-to to shut us down. That's what they do, and it's disgusting.
It is. I mean, I get triggered because I'm like, hang on a minute. Why would I put myself out there? Why would I put my balls on the block, ruin my career? Like, I just gave up a 16-year finance career to try and be a speaker, right? And I don't have a platform or anything really, just other than TikTok. And you know, I'm like, well, hang on a minute. Why would I do that? If I was, what do I have to gain? I'm a single guy with a dog. I don't work for any organizations. Like, I don't get paid off by it. Like, what do I have to gain by telling you this information? Do you know what I mean? And yet you're trying to censor me. Like, it's absolutely preposterous. And I've got to stop getting triggered by it, right? Because I know what they're doing. I know that they're not attacking me personally, but it feels that way. And that's why I get so angry, you know, at what I call Mummy Moderator. And well, Daddy Do Bad, I nicknamed because I thought it's a bit sexist saying it's just Mummy Moderator, but it just rolls off the tongue really well. And I use these nicknames, you know, because these censors, like, who are these people? Are they in a Chinese room somewhere, you know, in China? Are they even in Australia? Like, apparently the psychologists developed the community guidelines, but I'm like, hang on a minute, there's been no consultation with me whatsoever. And aren't I part of the community?
Yeah.
And they don't even give you a chance to rebut it, to question it and fight back the censorship. Is that correct?
Well, now they give you options. I don't know about fascist book, as I call it, because I haven't been banned from there for a while. I don't post as much, but on TikTok lately, in the last week or so, they've started giving you options. So it'll be like, my video does not break community guidelines, or I don't understand, this does not help me understand why I've broken the community guidelines, or there's a whole bunch of options that you can tick now. And the one that I tick mostly is the community guidelines should be reviewed to allow videos like mine. Because basically what I'm saying is you cannot say that we have freedom of speech and then censor anybody off the internet. Like, unless I'm actually threatening violence against somebody or something like that, that's a different story. But I'm not doing those things. Like, I'm not doing what they're accusing me of. The second one they get me on is harassment and bullying. And I've been done for harassing and bullying my own videos when I've stitched my own videos. AI has got me because I have the algorithm that gets you first, and then you've got to appeal it, right? But the problem with the appeals is you might have 3 violations and they ban you for having multiple violations. So they'll be like, you can't post for a day or a week or whatever. And then you're banned while they're looking at those appeals. And sometimes it takes days for them to look at the appeals. You win the appeals, but you're still being censored for 3 days. And it's like, hang on a minute, like, this is not even a fair playing field here. This is just wrong, so wrong. And the fact that people in the society can't see that just blows my mind away. Like, and when I talk about it, they just don't.
They have no idea, because unless it's affecting them and they're getting censored, they have no idea. And it's weird because I started getting censored back in 2020 on Facebook. I had a joint account with my husband, and that one's on its last leg. If we post like one more thing to do with anything to do with what's going on in the world, as we're all aware of here. We're on our way out. But on my personal account, I haven't even had a warning yet, which is strange. And I post all the time. So it's, I don't know how I'm getting away with it at this point in time. I'm just like crossing my toes and my fingers. Yeah. But you feel violated, and you feel like your voice is getting shut down. And not only that, you're free, unless you're posting the things like you and I and everyone else in this freedom movement is. You have no idea about censorship, about the control, about the 3-day bans to the 30 bans to how long it's, yours has progressed to 365 days on Facebook, which is shocking, and you have these conversations with people and they're totally ignorant of it, until I think my friend got banned for swearing, because now they're pulling people up for using curse words, which is ridiculous. Like,
really?
Yeah, it's for curse words now.
Yeah, I have to. Yeah, I have to change the way I spell things. I put like dots and stars and brackets and hashtags and everything in between to try and break up the algorithm. But I had my Instagram account removed without warning last year, at the beginning of last year, and I was absolutely distraught about it, because I had photos of my cat as a kitten, just little things that I did not save on my phone. There was some very old photos on there, and I was so gutted, and I didn't even know what I did. I'd been posting stuff in my story, but I had no warning. They just removed my account, and I could not get it back. And just the other day, my new Instagram, because I ended up making another one, people aren't allowed to tag me in their stories anymore, because I have spread misinformation about the COVID, and so people can't tag me anymore. It's just stupid. It really is, and it's a form of, the freedom of speech that went back in 2020, and probably even a little bit before that, but that's when I became aware of it. And fact checkers, who are the fact checkers? They never existed before 2020, because information was so much more accessible in 2020. Now, a lot of the information that we were finding to help us understand what was going on, that information is not found anymore. It's
interesting you talk about the fact checkers. There is BitChute's actually one of the platforms that I find that they don't censor now. So I don't even look for things on YouTube anymore. I know not everything on YouTube is controlled opposition, so to speak, but anyone who's really famous on YouTube, like speaking out, like Russell Brand and stuff like that, I'm like, well, the fact that you're even allowed on YouTube with 5 million followers tells me that you're in on it. You know what I mean? So BitChute's a really good one, and there's a series on there called The Fall of the Cabal.
Yes,
and we talk about that all the time.
And they go into the fact checkers, and they show you who's behind these fact checking organizations like Snopes and Politico and stuff like that. And they go, okay, well, they're connected with these people, and these people did this, and blah 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 blah. And you're like, you follow the trail of the people who are actually behind it, and it's a total scam, right? And then I've tried to explain this to woke people, right? So people in my family and friendship circles, stuff like that, and they just don't get it. Like, they don't understand what you're telling them, and all you can really do is speak the truth. And when it comes to freedom of speech, I know they're trying to kill freedom of speech, but like, I can go out in the park and speak if I really need to. You know what I mean? Like, we can always get the word out there. And freedom of speech is, I make a joke and say, freedom of speech doesn't die on this planet until I do, because as long as I'm still have a body avatar and have a voice, then I'm going to use it.
Yeah. Go you. I love that. Yeah, definitely. And, when did, going back to the beginning, when you had your so-called awakening and started to realize things aren't quite what they seem, when did the dots start connecting for you?
So I went through a long period of kind of depression and anxiety, and I was really unhappy for a long time. And my brother was, who died recently, was 10 years older than me.
Oh.
And it was kind of over a period of a long time. You know, I think it's kind of hard to pinpoint your awakening, but it probably started for me when I started listening to material like Abraham Hicks back in like 2016, 2017. I started listening to Abraham Hicks, Neville Goddard, Alan Watts. In 2017, I just started my business as a mortgage broker. And that day I went out to meditate at lunchtime for the first time. That was in 2017. And then I haven't stopped meditating every day since then. I also had some psychedelics, which I'm not advocating those for people at all, right? You can just do it with meditation. But I found that it just lifted the veil long enough for me to go, well, hang on a minute. I can see so much here and feel connected to everything. And then I wanted to experience that without the need for the psychedelic, right? So I started practicing shamanic breathing and longer meditations, and I was able to be in those states of consciousness without the need for the psychedelic, right? But then we still have to live in the real world and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a hard journey for me because I've had to basically go through the dark night of the soul. And I did that live on Facebook, and I have done that every day on the internet for the last 2.5 years. And to pinpoint my awakening to a specific period of time is really impossible. And for me, I always say you can actually fall asleep again, because we have to wake up every morning and we have to be aware of what's going on. So there's a lot of fake awakers out there. So they might have had some knowing, or they've had some experiences with psychedelics or whatever. Then they've gone back into the ego consciousness again. The ego is very tricky, and it's a consciousness that will trick you into thinking that you're awake when you've actually just developed a spiritual ego. And I had to go through all of that and get knocked down and like lose all my friends and family, because I was a little bit arrogant at first. You know, like at one point I had a past life regression and thought that I was Timothy from the Bible for a little while. So I was telling everybody that, and that didn't go down so well. And, you know, then I realized that I was kind of just wanting to be special, you know, when really, who cares if I was that or was not that in that past lifetime? It's about now, and I'm spirit having this human experience. So it's not even about your past life. And I had to learn that through other teachers, and I have spiritual coach as well. So it's always a level of awareness that you are continuing to expand. So you can be awake, but how aware are you?
Yeah, I like that.
I like that too. So what's happening over there in Brisbane at the moment? Because I saw on one of your TikToks you had gone to, I think, a rally or protest, and you mentioned something about fake woke people speaking on stage, which got my attention. Did you want to expand on that a little bit more? Or?
Yeah, so basically there are people out there subscribing to the narrative that the cabal want you to. So as long as you think that this thing is real, right, then they've got you. And let me explain that. So if you're going to tell people that it came from a bat, or it came from a lab in Wuhan and it was some kind of government cover-up or whatever, well, that's fine, but you're actually going down a rabbit hole of disinformation, because if you look at the actual evidence, they've never isolated it and the test doesn't test for it. Therefore, it doesn't exist. So if you're getting up on stage at a rally and talking about the lab again, like you mentioned the lab, and I'm like, hang on, why are you talking about this lab shit? Tell people it's not real. That's what you need to tell people. Why is somebody not on stage telling this crowd that this thing's not real and everyone's been lied to? Why is nobody up there doing this?
Yeah, and doing that at a freedom rally, you know, standing up against all this stuff, that doesn't really make sense, does it?
The choir's there and nobody's preaching. I couldn't believe it. I was very upset. I'm like, why can't I be up there? You know, this person and they were from a health alliance, they're from the Queensland Practitioners Health Alliance. And I'm like, these people are still psyoped into, they don't understand the spiritual nature of reality. They're still psyoped into the 3D nature of modern medicine. They're still believing in the virus. It's a lie. It's not real.
So when this whole pandemic did break out in 2020, what was your reaction to it? Did you believe it at first?
No, because I understood during A Course in Miracles that we're energy, frequency, and vibration. And there is not an illness that you experience without there being a reason why you've attracted that illness. And I'm not saying that it's a blame thing, but I'm telling you, everyone creates their own reality, good, bad, or indifferent. And if you really want to take responsibility and account, if you really believe that, then you've got to take responsibility for the bad shit that you attract in your life too. And that includes ear infections, anything that goes on with your body avatar is something to do with the metaphysical, because there is no law of assertion, there's only law of attraction. And I'm not saying that there aren't things out there that can make you ill, but you're attracting those experiences, whether you believe it or not. That's just the truth.
Yeah. And in terms of like where you're living in Australia, how are people responding to like mask mandates now? Are people over it, or just COVID in general? Anything that's to do with COVID, are people over it, or are they still kind of complying 50-50? What's your take on it?
What I notice is happening now is they're not straight out mandating. What they're doing is it's a classic tool that the cabal use. It's they're trying to get the sheep to police each other. So what they're doing is they're going, oh, we're not mandating it, we're just relying on people using common sense and personal responsibility. So they're saying, if you're in a shopping center, if you're in a place where you can't social distance, you should be wearing a mask, right? And then what they're doing is they're seeing how people react. So they don't want to mandate it, again, because they'll have people like me out there going, they don't want that right now, right? So they're going, we'll see what happens. So you'll go into a shop, and the good news is the majority of people aren't wearing them. And you can see the levels of awareness, what I was talking about with people being awake and aware of things. Anybody who's wearing a mask in Brisbane right now, they're too far gone, because you don't have to. It's a recommendation. It's not a mandate. It's a recommendation. And these people are doing it because they're just not there. And I know it sounds like I'm being really judgy and really harsh when I say things like that, but it's just a harsh way of saying the truth. These people are completely zombified. They've been hypnotized since they were children. Their parents, they've been indoctrinated. We've been indoctrinated for hundreds of years, thousands of years. This is not something that's new that's been happening on this planet. So it's just, we're all becoming aware of it now. And some people are just not aware of it.
I like how you touched on how they're leaving it up to people to police each other, because that is a classic cabal move, because it's another way of getting us to bicker amongst each other and point the finger, which they've done. That's been their tactic for many, many years, divide and conquer. And it has really split society, and the way I see it now is that where there's ultimately like two different parallel universes living out side by side. We've got the people that are still following the narrative, happy to go along and be told how to live their lives. And we've got people really starting to question things, or even on the brink of thinking, okay, something isn't quite right here. Things aren't making sense. We've been wearing masks for 2 years now, and people have still managed to contract it. There are people that have had all 3 of the shots, and they've still managed to contract the so-called virus. And it's like, where do we draw the line? Like, where are people going to see that things aren't what they're telling us? And media needs to be held accountable, because they've been one of the biggest culprits in this whole fabrication of this virus worldwide. And so let's just touch on that. What is the Australian media being like? Is everyone spitting the same narrative? Because I have seen with Sky News there's they do tend to be more truthful in their stories and their approach to COVID. Is that what you're finding?
Yeah, I mean, I don't watch Sky News. It's a paid per view service, so not everyone has access to it. But I mean, I'll just say Sky News is what I call controlled opposition, same as Fox News in the US. But the news media here, I mainly follow the Australian broadcaster, which is like the BBC in England. They're like the taxpayer-funded broadcaster, basically, rather than the commercial news channels. But they're all spinning the same narrative. So they're talking about cases, deaths, and hospitalizations, and they're using that to create fear.
Yeah.
See, the biggest trick of all of this is using death as a tool to create fear, because death isn't actually real. death is an illusion. Like, you can't actually die. Your body might not exist, but you existed before you came into your physical body, and it'll exist long after. And only part of you is in this physical body anyway. It's only a portion of your consciousness is even here. You know what I mean? The rest of you can't see, hear, smell, taste, or touch. And if people actually understood that and really got it in their unconscious mind, they wouldn't be able to use death as a tool on the news media anymore. But that's what they do. And that's why I keep saying to people, death is an illusion. Death is not real. You take away people's fear of death and they don't have that power anymore.
Yeah, yes. That is true. Taking that fear away from death. But see, the fear, it totally just gets rid of, there's no rationale. People cannot think rationally. Like, when you're in fear, it goes out the window. And we've seen that. We've seen that globally. We see it here in NZ. But I have to say, people in New Zealand are waking up. But I think Australia is a lot more, well, from what I've seen, but do correct me if I'm wrong, but I see Australia's been on the ball, like, and waking up a lot quicker than than over here in NZ. Would you say that would be correct?
My perception's different because I've got a lot of friends from New Zealand that I've met on TikTok. And because if you think about it, there's like 5 million people in New Zealand, right?
Yeah.
So it takes, like, if you put something out in the media in New Zealand and it goes viral enough, like, the chance of you helping wake up 5 million people is a lot easier, because it's a lot easier to get it even out there for them to see. Whereas in Australia, my content can be censored, and also a lot of Australians kind of like look, and if it's not affecting them, or they see me and they kind of like know my basic narrative, right? So now they're not even paying attention to me. Like, they're like, oh, that guy again, kind of thing, or whatever. And like, a lot of people just, they get in the getaway car and they just drive away from it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to know about it. And it's kind of like in their minds, it's kind of like over, but then now it's starting to creep back in because of the media. So I'll give you an example. The exhibition's on here, right? And they're saying now, oh, don't go to the Echo because it's going to be a spreader event or whatever. And then I was at my mum's for dinner last night, and she's like, oh, I wouldn't go to the Echo this year. And I'm like, oh, why not? And she was about to say, because I wouldn't want to get sick, right? But she knows my belief system. So she's like, oh, I just don't want to. And I felt like saying, you're so easily brainwashed, Mum. You believe in what they're saying on the TV, and that's why you don't want to go to the Echo. Like, it's got, you don't, because you think you're going to get sick. That's what they're telling you. So I would think in New Zealand, I reckon there's more people awake in New Zealand in terms of per the population than there would be in Australia as a percentage.
That was actually going to be,
whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's just my perception.
That was actually going to be my next question. Is since you've gone on social media and shared your opinion so passionately, what has been the response from your immediate friends and family? Have you lost any of them, or do they kind of just leave you to your own accord?
Yeah, I think 2020 was a really hard year for me because I basically lost, friendships that were over a decade old. I don't really have much of a relationship with my extended family. My mum and I still have a good relationship, but it's not the same as it was because we were kind of on a similar journey together. And then I kind of like went this like massive leap of like from where I was to here, and it really shocked everybody. And then I went through the dark night of the soul, and I did some things too. I lashed out at people and I said some hurtful things, and it's cost me a lot. A lot of friendships and a lot of I don't even know if haven't been to a family event like all 2021 really. I think there's one I went to, but I didn't go to Christmas last year. It's actually been really hard. It's been really hard in that way, because I feel like it's hard to even be in society anymore. And some of my friends, I'm still friends with them, but we don't really see each other. Like, we're friends, but we're friends from a distance, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
do you find you just don't relate? Like, I find with my old time friends that I've known since intermediate, that I just, if I can't talk about the stuff we're talking so openly about here now, I don't feel like I'm being myself, and then I feel like I'm, being fake. Do you find it hard? Yeah.
I can, but like I can only talk about things that are relatable to them. Like I literally would spend my time talking about the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, or, you know, something that like I still enjoy about the 3D world that I can, you know, talk. But then if anything comes up,
I watch that too, by the way. It's my guilty pleasure. Yeah.
You know,
maths I get real into as well. That reality TV is sometimes nice to just switch off.
Yeah. I remember when I first woke up, I'm like, I'm doing away with Netflix, I'm doing away with movies, fuck it all. But I didn't last long. But when you're awake and you're aware and you come back to it, you can see all the little hidden messages and the programming, you know. So when you're aware of it, it's not too bad. You know what they're doing, and you can kind of dismiss it.
It's actually amazing. I watched Lucifer on Netflix, and that's a brilliant series because, see, I try to explain this to people. The cabal, the ones who are committing all this evil, right? Because there's only law of attraction, there's no law of assertion. The only way that evil can defeat you is if you consent to it. You have to consent to the evil. That's why they had to put a mandate in, because people still had the choice. Everyone still consented. Everyone who had it, whether there was a mandate. I know that some of them will say, I had no choice, I had to keep my job, blah, blah, blah. No, there was always a choice. And you were given a choice and you made a choice. And there are consequences for that choice. There are consequences. And I'm not saying that you can't heal from it or whatever. There are spiritual people out there who are like, oh, once you've had it, you this and that, and you're never going to heal and you're never going to ascend, blah, blah, blah. That's a load of poo. You can ascend at any time. You can always wake up and heal your own body. You know, I know that to be true. But there are consequences for those choices because you have consented, you know, and evil can only defeat you if you consent to it. It's like, have you ever seen the 1992 movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Yes, yeah.
Remember with the vampire,
with the blonde chick in it, eh? Not Sarah Michelle Gellar.
No, it's the one. It's Christy Swanson, her name was.
And Luke Perry from 902.
Yeah, Luke Perry's in it. Yeah. And remember, the vampires. So, like, this is my apartment, right? The vampires can only come into your actual house if you invite them in. And guess what? Everybody did. Invited a vampire into their house.
Yeah. I like that analogy. What a good way.
The movies show you how it works in the occult and the spiritual world. And if you can see it and you can pick up on it, they're showing you how it works. Because they have to show you. That's the rule. That's the laws of the universe. You can't commit atrocities against humanity unless they actually consent to it. And the only reason this is happening in the world, the only reason, and I'll quote David Icke, the only reason why the few are able to control the many is because the many keep acquiescing their power to the few. Yeah. And I'm all about giving people their power back.
Yeah. And just giving them, that's why it's so important to, you know, for you to keep speaking out, for us to keep speaking out, to break that narrative, to break the bullshit that's being projected into, you know, the human psyche on a daily basis. And I think going forward, that's what we just got to keep doing. We need to keep pushing back through creating different media content for people to engage in other than what's on offer right now. And we are spoiled for choice at the moment. I think we are so bombarded from different avenues, from our iPhones, from advertising, social media, you know, broadcasting on, you know, national television, that, you know, it gets confusing for people of what is actually the truth. And then when we're getting shut down and censored and called crazy and gaslighted, people, you know, tend to believe the authority figure that they've grown up with, you know, and because what we are saying may seem very far-fetched. I think it's hard for people to, with that, what is it, cognitive dissonance, to drop those barriers that you build up within yourself and cross that line. And because when you do start hearing about satanic ritual abuse, that really darker stuff, child trafficking, who wants to believe that? And who wants to believe this has been happening right under our nose, you know? It's the most horrific part of this awakening was learning all that darker stuff. How did that kind of information hit you when you started to go down that route?
Yeah, I mean, at first it's really confronting, right? Because you're like, well, hang on a minute. Why would these people come into this experience and choose to be treated like that? Like, why would a child come into this world and they say that you choose to incarnate here and stuff like that? And I'm like, well, why would a child come into this world to choose to be abused, and then, you know, go through shocking abuse situations all their life, and then end up on drugs and end up, you know, overdosing in the street on heroin because they were sexually abused from the age of 5 till 12 or whatever. Why would anybody choose that experience, right? Like, your ego just goes, oh my God, and then you can't fathom it, right? Mm-hmm. But then when you look at things from a bigger picture, and I've had this through meditation, where I've asked Source questions, and I've asked Source, how can this be happening? Like, if it's a classic question, right? If there was a God, why would God allow this sort of thing to happen? And what Source said to me is that people are having these experiences. If the contrast wasn't there, you wouldn't be able to know the difference. So if that wasn't happening, you wouldn't even be able to know that there was a world where that didn't have to exist in. It has to exist in order for it not to exist, if that makes sense. And it's like, then you can kind of, it doesn't help with it's still awful and it's still traumatic to see and to know that it's happening. But the message that I got was, despite that, everything's actually in divine order, because when you look at this world of duality, like the yin and yang, with the good and the bad, the light and the dark, light is just information, and there's only darkness with the absence of light. Like, there's no dark switch, there's only light. And light has the advantage because light can always turn on, and darkness doesn't exist in the presence of light. So therefore, there is no assertion of darkness. Like I keep saying, there's only law of attraction. There's no evil coming at you that you really have to worry about unless you consent and allow it in.
100%. 100%. I love that. And going into the, sorry, it just slipped my mind. I had it on my mind what I was going to ask. That's it. With the light at the end of the tunnel, in terms of, because there is a bright side to all the censorship happening right now. I think people like us who are mentioning our censorship and talking about it openly are bringing it into the psyche that this is happening and this is wrong, and people are starting to look in the media in another light. And I'm seeing this is evident with the comments our media here on Facebook is getting. So they've got their own page set up on Facebook, and they just get slammed in the comments like, you need to start speaking the truth, this isn't making sense. So that gives me hope, you know. Have you seen that, the turnaround where people are actually clicking on to the media being biased and not showing the full picture?
Yeah, definitely. There are media organizations and people who will put up like a tweet or something. They'll get slammed so hard that they actually have to delete the tweet. Or I've seen media organizations actually delete the comments. So they'll have a story, but you can't comment anymore because they've just been slammed by the comments. And the good thing about it is, the reason why they have to have this AI technology and stuff going around and censoring people for bullying and harassing, for stitching their own videos, it's like, and then when you appeal it, a human looks at it and goes, oh, sorry, the AI stuffed up, we'll let you back on again, is because they can't censor everyone. There's so much coming at them on these platforms that in the end, that it just gets to a point where, like, you know, it gets too hard for them. Like there's going to be a boiling point where they're either going to have to, there are people who say that the internet's going to get shut down and stuff like that. Look, I don't know if any of that's true, right? I don't think that it would be for long anyway, but they are trying to put laws through in certain countries where they ban you off the internet altogether. So, and they're trying to do like where you have to have a license to go on and stuff like that. So they'll keep trying to push it further and further where we're not allowed on the internet at all, because there's so much coming at them. But what I know to be true is that if I have this much passion and fire in my belly to keep going, millions of other people have that same fire and passion. And if we can just keep that alive, and people like us three do, then there's no stopping that. The snowball is already building. It's about to roll down the hill. And once it goes down the hill, look out. because we're coming, and there's no
once you're
stopping.
awake, you can't go back to sleep. You can't turn a blind eye. And that is what's happening. Like, we are actually living through the greatest story of human history. And when you put it into that perspective, it's so exciting. People are waking up. And unfortunately, there are going to be ones that just completely miss the boat. And I feel sorry for them because, you know, we're seeing everything unfold. And when you do wake up to the truth, even though it's so shocking, it makes sense. You know, like, even though it's so shocking, it makes sense that things have been happening in a way where we've been kept away from our true power, from knowing ourselves deeply. You know, it's very superficial, the relationships we have with ourselves and with others, but through going through this whole awakening, and not just awakening to the corruption, but awakening to your true power, there has been this huge shift in the whole human collective, essentially, where you're seeing people are realizing it's not about service to self, it's about service to others. What can I do for others? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always use the analogy of, if a plane's in trouble, right? They always say to you, and you know how the masks fall down, you've got to put your oxygen mask on in the plane. They always say, make sure you put your own mask on before assisting others, right? So it's like, you need to be in a state where you have filled your own cup enough to be able to really be there and be that service to others. Because for so much of my life, I tried to be out there trying to fit in, please others. You know, I almost had a nervous breakdown as a mortgage broker and as a business development manager at a bank, because I was just so stressed out all the time with other people's problems and trying to help people, but I wasn't taking time to look after myself. I was binge drinking. I was, being frivolous. I passed out 3 times and went to hospital. Like, I wasn't looking after myself. I was trying to do everything for everybody else. And you've got to find that balance, you know, because you've got to be selfish enough to care about yourself enough to look after yourself first, and then when that cup's full, it's going to overflow, and that's when you can give so much to others, you know. And I find I work at my best. Like this morning, if I didn't meditate and be in this state where I can speak like this as clearly as I can, I wouldn't be of value to anyone today if I didn't look after myself first. So I think it's important to have that balance, because being of service to yourself is being of service to others, because you're looking after yourself, and then you can be the best person you can be for other people every day.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. You can't, and it's about preserving that energy. And we were talking about this before we jumped on, you know, and setting those healthy boundaries is always important too. And I think it's a great way to finish this conversation here today with, you know, that reminder to everyone too is, you know, you've really got to put in that self-love and do the work, like you said, how you've been doing the shadow work. That's important. I think a lot of us try to skip that part, but there's so much to learn about yourself in those darker, you know, the darker moments of your life. And you cannot experience the light without experience like that deep darkness too. It goes back to that duality, that beautiful balance that we are coming into alignment with. And so to end this episode, what do you want to, what message would you like to tell the viewers going forward?
Yeah, I really would like to encourage people to investigate experimenting with how we create our own reality. So, for example, if you want to show yourself that you have some influence over what happened in this world, you can prove it to yourself by thinking of something as simple as, like, let's say we think of a song, right? So I don't know if you know this song by Neil Diamond called Sweet Caroline. It goes, Sweet Caroline, bum, bum, bum. The town never felt so good. Like, if you think of a song, right? You think of a song and then you wait, you'll jump into someone's car one day and the radio will turn on and that song will be on and you'll be like, oh my God, I was thinking of that song the other day and I asked the universe to show me a sign that I create my own reality, where I hear that song and I know that it's me who's done it, right? Or I've done it where I've thought of a duck, like I thought of literally this like toy duck, and then 2 weeks later I went into the shopping center and they were like having this like competition. There was like these like toy ducks that I saw, and they were the exact duck that I had in my vision. So you create your own reality, and you can prove to yourself how powerful you are by looking at how your thoughts, feelings, and beliefs really do manifest outside in the computer screen that we're looking at. And you are that which we call God, and you can show yourself how powerful you are with just that simple technique. And once you can do that, you're like, well, if I can manifest a duck or whatever, I can have that influence over my own reality. Imagine what I can do for the rest of the world. Imagine what, every time I meditate and every time I have a visualization of the world getting better, that reality is becoming real.
I love you, Tim, and I love that you've actually, hit the nail on the head with that, because that's totally my beliefs too. And I think it goes back to knowing yourself and that inner power again. Like, we are our own creators, and I'm so glad that you've mentioned that today. And I think that's a beautiful way to end this interview. And we just want to thank you so much for your time, for sharing your story. It's been great getting to know you. As you both know, I'm not on TikTok. I'm a dinosaur when it comes to social media. I'm only on Facebook. I've just got onto Instagram. But yeah, I will be following you from now on TikTok, because I have started watching you, and I just loved your energy. I love how raw you are. You don't put on a front. I like people that can just flick the camera on and give that message. There's no preparation beforehand. It's raw, it's authentic, and we need more of that in the world. There's a lot of fake influencers on TikTok. We need more of you out there doing what you're doing. So kudos to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a really wonderful conversation, and I hope that one day maybe we can meet in person. And
I love it.
Yes, I love absolutely.
That would be awesome. And yeah, let's keep in touch, and maybe we can get together and chat again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, would love to do another interview. There's so much, fuckery happening and unfolding. There's a lot to cover. So yeah, definitely would love to have you on at some other point too.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your day and your weekend.
Yes.
Sorry?
I'll see you over on TikTok.
Yes, awesome. Have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
All right, thank you.
Take care, and thank you to everyone for tuning in. Ka kite.
Bye.